Welcome one, welcome all. It is the Circuit of the Americas today in Texas, and we got stats here to break it all down with us here. Lots of fun to be had. Xfinity yesterday was a good time, stats. We had Connor Zilisch, who is going to be making his first Cup race debut today in the Red Bull. I had to buy a Red Bull for the show today because, I am going to be rooting him on, though I'm not as high on him as some others might be. But we have a lot of storylines to track here, stats. How are you doing first off? How was your weekend last week?
Doing well. Yeah, I mean, we're getting out of the super speedways. And if there's an antithesis of super speedways, I guess it might be road courses. So, totally different. You newcomers to DFS, if you played along with us, Daytona, we did have the winner, by the way, in the bets, at least, at Daytona. We weren't here last week for Atlanta, but this is going to be a totally different kind of racing. We're not just making left turns today. We will be making multiple turns and a road course. Now, they've changed it. For those of you who've been playing NASCAR and don't realize, they've changed the course. So this course used to be 3.4 miles. They've knocked a mile off the course. The distance of the race is still the same. So what that means is we're going to have more laps here. So we're going to go from 68 laps to 95 laps this year. We got 3 stages, 20 laps, 25 laps, and then the final stage will be 50 laps. And they've also changed. They're running on a new tire compound this week, and we're gonna be seeing a significant amount of tire wear, which will potentially affect this race as well. After running like 10 laps on these tires, we were seeing a 2-second differential in lap times, which is fairly significant. So we'll see if that plays into this race and maybe some of the strategy involved. So, it should be interesting. Totally different. Now, when I say it is totally different, but we are still going to have it's a situation with just 95 laps. There's not a ton of Dom points out there. Now, we will have fastest laps, which we don't really see at the super speed where you can't really predict fastest laps. Here, you will get some, the leader will also probably get a bunch of fastest laps. So we'll get some Dom points from that. But there's a lot of good place differential. And this race is kind of setting up. We're going to go through them one by one. But this is setting up for there's a lot of plays that look really strong, and not all of them are going to be able to hit the board. So it should be interesting. And I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's a great thing that you brought up the tire wear. I did confirm that Xfinity did run a different tire than the one that will be used today here, stats. So it is just worthwhile noting that. But I know there's a picture in the Discord of Austin Hill's tires being completely chewed up, right? And you just say 10 laps, a 2-second difference between their best lap and their worst lap there. 2 seconds. You know what? It feels like we've been in a straight line, right? All these cars have been follow the leader on these road courses a little bit. If you're seeing some tire wear, especially degrading at that high of a clip, I don't know. It gets me more excited for this one than I already was. Here, stats. We got a lot of potential. You saw Zilisch, who had a penalty in the last race in the Xfinity race, able to overcome that and win going away with it. I mean, you had Byron, who was able to make his way through the pack. Chastain, I know that those guys had better equipment and are much more talented than some of the other drivers in the Xfinity series. But at the same time, maybe we do see a lot more action here on a road course than we have in recent history. Because look, obviously the track change that you said they took about a mile off. It's very comparable in terms of length to Watkins Glen. I think is almost the same exact distance now as COTA is. So it's one of those things where if we do get more passing, it will kind of bring, I think, some of these guys further in the pack. I mean, look, you're going to have some chalk pieces like Cindric, Buescher, Bowman, and stuff, even Briscoe starting 18th. But really, you're going to have these guys who are elite at road courses probably be a little bit more viable. And I think that's going to be worthwhile here. Stats, we'll go ahead and break it down here in a minute. But first, code RPS15, 15% off your first purchase here at Run Pure Sports. If you do want to get in on some of the action here, we got March Madness coming up. Can you believe the conference tournaments are starting tomorrow? I think there are certain NCAA conferences who are going to be starting their tournaments tomorrow. I know Steve Boynton and Catton will have projections up. Boynton will have all the content up for the entire March Madness season as well. There will be a March Madness package too that will be debuting here very, very shortly. So it should be a good time here. And again, if you do want the NASCAR content, we have an all sports package as well. You can get it in for a nice cheap rate using the weekly package as well if you don't need all the bells and whistles that are offered here at Run Pure Sports. All right, stats. We go to the studs range, all right? And what's the first thing that you notice? All these studs starting inside the top 20, right? We got 8.6K in that. Chastain kind of makes the I made an exception, right? I think Tony also did this, but we kind of cut it off right at Ty Gibbs because I think Chastain kind of belongs in this group. I think Zilish belongs in this group. Trackhouse Racing yesterday in practice was very fast, right? Didn't qualify exactly how you would have thought. But you know who did qualify really well? 2311. Tyler Reddick starts on pole. His teammate Bubba Wallace starts second. And what should be noted, Riley Herbst, another 2311 driver, had a time to lead it that would have put him good enough for third in qualifying here. What are you doing with the studs here today, Stats?
Yeah, I mean, you're touching on 2311. They didn't practice well, like you said, but certainly figured something out. Now they, with 3 cars, I think that's an advantage here that they have. Puts them in there with some of the big guys now. And yeah, like you said, they almost had 3 cars right up there in the top 3. So, and when you look at these guys, let's look at the Tyler Reddick who's staring at us right now. He is really good at the road courses. So when they have a setup here that you gotta like based on qualifying, I kind of like Tyler Reddick. He starts on the pole. We saw last year, we could go right to Byron here because Byron started on the pole last year, led a bunch of laps, led like 40 laps last year off the pole and won the race. So there is a significant advantage. This is not like Daytona, starting on the pole at a track, at a lot of these road tracks and COTA, in particular here today. You can get out front and lead a bunch of laps. Now, for a Reddick or a lot of these guys who are starting, let's say top 5, top 6, they're probably going to have to get you some Dom points as well as that strong finish. Obviously, starting first, Reddick is going to need to do that. I think he's got the potential to do it. If you look, you guys look over at like there's not a lot of sports books that give too many of these unusual props, but Prize Picks gives props on for just a few of the drivers, and they've got Reddick to lead like 35. I think it's 35 and a half laps, somewhere in that range. So that's a fairly significant amount of laps if he could lead that and win the race. And obviously, he is one of the favorites to do so. And so I do like Reddick here. I threw Reddick in my core. Kind of, this is one where you're not playing Reddick in cash, but if you're playing him in the GPPs, which I play the GPPs, and our cores are based on GPPs, you've got to pick one of these guys who's going to dominate. You're going to have to get. I didn't talk about it in the open, but as far as lineup construction goes, we're looking for at least 1 Dom, might have 2. I'd be surprised if we get 3. So I think you're looking at 1 to 2 Doms here, and it's the obvious choice to me is the pole sitter Reddick, who's really really strong on in road racing, right, on the road courses. Byron, now we'll get back to him. Starts 15th, so I think he's got about, outside of Bell, he's got about the best place differential potential. And people are going to look at Byron. They're going to say, well, he won this race last year. I go back to the fact that he did start on the pole. So we haven't seen Byron be really good on the road courses where he's had to pass a lot of drivers. So I'm less in on Byron than maybe some other people will be based on past experience. You get down to SVG, and this is what he does. I mean, he's a road course guy everywhere except for COTA. Now, it was only 1 race. He was terrible here last year, just didn't lead any laps. I think you could kind of punt that one and, just chalk it up to some bad luck last year. This is his specialty. He's the favorite to win this race. But again, from that 6th position, if he does anything remotely like he did last year, it's not going to work. And from 6, look, he's probably got more ability than anyone else in the field on the road courses. He can easily get up to the front fairly early, but I think it's going to be really tough because Reddick is like I said, no slouch here on these type of races. I think it'll be tough for him to overtake Reddick early on, get a lot of those laps led, nor does he really want to. Does he want to take those chances early on in the race? So I'm still sticking with Reddick being the guy who pretty much leads the that first stage and gets us a bunch of points. You get down to Larson, another guy who's pretty good on these road courses. Not necessarily great track history here, though. He's got 18th, 14th, 29th. Basically, in the next gen cars here at COTA, he's averaged about 20th, so has not been all that impressive. Still going to be owned. All these guys, by the way, are going to be owned. There's going to be anywhere from 20 to the 40% owned on all of the these guys of the salary of, let's say, I don't know, like 8K or even lower, like in the mid 7Ks and up, and then you're going to see a lot less on the cheaper guys. So, and they've priced it that way. We're not getting like super high prices. The last few weeks now, it seems like the pricing has been, there's hasn't been that clear-cut favorite that they're pricing way out there. So anyway, Larson, I think, he'll have some ownership. I think if you want to fade any of the guys in the top, I'm not all that high on Larson because of his past here. But look, it's Kyle Larson, maybe the best overall driver in the sport right now. Bell, super interesting. I think a lot of people are going to have Bell. He's going to be one of the favorites here to he might be the overall highest owned driver on the slate. Starts 19th, has a second place finish here last year, had a third place finish back in 22. So with that 19th, it's all a place differential type of play. Of these high-priced guys, he has the best place differential potential. So Bell will be high owned. It's tough to pass up on Bell. Elliott, another guy with fairly decent history. He's averaging 10th here in the next gen cars. Missed in 23, but had a fourth place finish in 22. He won here in 21, which was the old, I believe 2021 was not the next gen when he did win here. Another pretty solid road course driver as well. And then Allmendinger is the guy who, man, we talk about him all the time, how much of it he, Dinger the ringer. He is a guy who comes in, he's got that road course pedigree, but we had a sixth place finish here last year. But before that, a couple of he was out of those races, 34 and 33rd. It always seems to me with Dinger that he is going to get ultra aggressive. He knows these are his chances to potentially get a win. He's not going to win any of these other races. He's going to win. If he's going to win, it's going to be a road course race, and he goes balls to the wall if he's there at the end. So that leads to, the high risk reward. He's going to either get real close to the top, maybe a top 5 finish, or he's going to put himself out of the race. So I think I don't love Dinger starting 12th. I think there's too much risk there. But people will play him because he's a bit of a ringer. And then we went to Zilich. We talked about him yesterday. The kid's 18 years old. He was a minus 150 favorite in that race yesterday. Wins it. He gets kicked to the back. Had no problem at all just kind of driving past these guys. Look, the younger guys, I mean, he's obviously stepping up in class here with these drivers. But these younger guys are, for the most part, all pretty good on these road courses. It's not like, the guys that we're not going to be high on this week are the older drivers, the Hamlins, these guys who are not necessarily road course guys, Keselowski. But these younger drivers are they're all pretty solid on the road courses. And Zilich is, making his debut. This is what he does. He's a road course guy. I think a lot of people will be on him because of the race yesterday. Starts 14th, not terrible. And, I forget where he is in the market. I got to go look back exactly where he is in the betting markets. But yeah, I mean, he could certainly win the race. I think I wouldn't be shocked because of the betting odds, but I think he's got a lot to overcome here with some pretty experienced drivers. And it's going to take a pretty decent finish for him, which he's certainly capable. Does he get there with a top 5? What do you think? No laps led, top 5. Does he get to the winner?
I think a top 5 will get below 9K. I think it will be 100% in the winner. I would say that, right? Because you have to look at it like yesterday, right? Byron started second, right? Or did Byron start third or second yesterday? He gets second place in the end all be all. Wasn't in the winner, I don't think, right? So you get that little bit of PD bonus, right? You get that little bit of great. It's not like these guys are overpriced. Like Byron yesterday on the Xfinity slate was 10-5, and I'm not comparing the Xfinity to the Cup in the same sense. Like, it's going to play out the same or whatever. But like, what you can kind of determine is, can they get the 45 fantasy points? And that answer would be yes in that case, right? 45 fantasy points, maybe some fast slaps in there and everything. That's good enough for me. That's the cut line. Can you get the 45 fantasy points? Guys like Chase Elliott and stuff like that, no, right? Because I don't think the PD is going to be there. Guys like Kyle Larson, that's where I'm kind of like a little bit different, right? I'm with you on Reddick, though, but like it becomes a case where I do need them to almost start where Chastain's starting and further back to really be like 5th is good enough.
With Chastain starting 9th, what do you think? He's got to finish even better than that.
I'm trying to think because like what would that be? Like 35 plus 8, right? So you'd be looking at actually plus 4. So yeah, you'd actually be looking at the 40 mark there. So you would need Chastain to get 3rd, right? You would just need Chastain to get 3rd. And even then, like that's kind of stretching it too. Zilich's case, like 5th, yeah, that would be enough.
I think 5th. Yeah. So And you're probably, I mean, and these guys are probably going to be owned fairly similar. Chastain will be owned a little less, but look at the history of Chastain here. His worst finish was last year, which was 7th. So he's 7th, 4th, 1st, 4th. Pretty solid for Chastain, but it's going to take his best, it's going to take the best effort, like we just said, top 3 to get there. Certainly has the ability. I had him yesterday. He was one of the 3 favorites yesterday. We mentioned Zilich was the big chalk at -150. That's one other thing in the betting markets. When we looked at Daytona a couple of weeks ago, and it's like, okay, we're going to get some pretty good prices. We wound up hitting with Byron at a nice price, plus 2,200. Unusual that you'll see a winner on these road courses that you're going to get that kind of a price, because these guys are such specialists. The wrecks aren't as devastating. You can usually recover unless your name is Hocevar, and
that pissed me off. Oh my god, the worst part is, like, after the fact, after the race, you're just looking at it, you're like, you bubbled, right? Like, I bubbled. I'm sitting there. I didn't make any cash back. I was right on the cash line. So I'm like, if Hocevar just gets into that damn vehicle, just drives it to 24th, it's a good day.
I'm double the market. Yeah, I was double the market on Hocevar yesterday, and that did not work out well. And I still finished pretty strong. So yeah, if Hocevar does anything, it's probably a way different day for me yesterday. But these when they, I don't even want to call them wrecks. They could kind of bang in. Matter of fact, Zilich had some damage to the car yesterday. They didn't think that he was going to be able to. They thought there was one, I forget who he banged with, but looked like he had some decent damage on the right hand side, right front, and didn't stop him at all. So you're not looking at a Daytona type of race. Typically, you're not going to luck into a win here. It's going to be one of these guys who has skill on these type of courses, and also the equipment matters more so than maybe it does at a Daytona. So you're going to need the equipment, which is why we like the 2311, the way that they qualified this week. And you're looking at the drivers, and you're just probably not going to luck into a win. So yesterday, when I started this all, because I did like Chastain, one of the 3 favorites. Didn't get there, obviously. But yeah, when we're looking at the betting, and I haven't made my final bets yet, you guys will get that in the Discord, but you can't go too far down. We can't be looking at like the 15th choice to potentially win. I think it's going to probably be, it's a deep field, so we might have like 7 or 8 legit drivers to win it, but I don't think you're going to go too much deeper than that.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I'm going to answer some questions here real quick. Can you roster SVG and Reddick in the same lineup in single entry? Yes, you can. I do think there is room. I wouldn't do 3 guys in the top 9, right? But I think I would kind of separate it out, where I'm not huge on the groups today. I'm actually really not grouping at all, but I think I would limit myself to 2 guys inside the top 10. I do want your take on Bubba Wallace a little bit later, because this becomes a finishing position, right? Like, where obviously 2311 has speed, right? We saw it in qualifying. Weren't the fastest in practice, for example, though. But it's like, if Bubba Wallace were to get like 7th, probably not good enough. But if you were to get a top 5, then you're like, oh man, maybe this is good at 6,800 and stuff. So I'm okay with SVG and Reddick in the same lineup. Mario Donizzi, I am actually debating that for my main team as well. This is something where I'm kind of in a 2v2 right now, and the 2v2 does involve Reddick. Let me go ahead and see some other questions here. If you guys are new to NASCAR DFS, this is a good place to start. This show, I do want to make the announcement. The show won't always be free this year like it was last year. It will alternate between being premium and free, but we will have a Sunday show almost every race. I know Atlanta last week, that was my fault. I was not in town at the moment. But we are back and we are ready to move forward. Absolutely. And Justin Sports, Reddick and Cash is a terrible play, question mark. I'm not playing Reddick and Cash stats. You mentioned it earlier that you don't think you would play Reddick and Cash either. No. There's a lot of liability with him starting first, right? Like, he is the most likely for me to get non points. And obviously stats mentioned that prize picks prop on Tyler Reddick there is actually kind of an intriguing one with the laps led. It is worth noting that this track is the first track that we have this year where fastest laps actually correlate with the leader. And with Daytona and Atlanta, they did not actually correlate with the leader. They correlated with the back of the pack. That's why you didn't see guys who were leading laps. Those Dom points were very minimal because, look, if you're leading the pack, you're not the fastest car. You're the fastest car. That's is right. The one who's like 10th, 15th in line, and depending on the the lineup there. And all of a sudden you just have guys who were able to crank out like 12 fastest laps. Well, that's the equivalent of 20 laps left. Like, you just have to make those judgments. And to me, Reddick, though, in cash, probably a little bit aggressive. I do think there is room. Maybe not, because the more I look at it,
there's too many good place differential guys.
Exactly.
That Reddick's going to not be owned in cash.
Because I was just thinking, I'm like, can you make the case for Reddick, right? I'm just playing contrarian. But it's like you got Byron starting 15th who does really well here. Like, that's a much better cash. Like, your Christopher Bell starting 19th. You're going to have other guys who are at the bottom, which we're going to go ahead and move to the mid tier in just a second. But, like, you got so many guys who can at least move up 10, in this case, 8 to 10 positions here in the studs range that will probably be a little bit better than trying to rely on Reddick to lead a significant margin of this race. Stats, the one thing I'd wanted to make sure was known, my take on Zilich, right? Yep. I will be rooting for him, all right? I want to see the Red Bull car do really well. Let me get that Red Bull logo right there.
By the way, worst drink in the world. Red Bull's got to be one of the worst drinks. I don't know how you drink that crap.
The best part is when I was working for Verizon and stuff, I would always have Red Bull, and a nurse came in, it's like, you're going to have kidney stones in the next decade. That said, it's worth it. the Red Bull, it probably will cause some kidney stones, which I probably won't be worth it when it's actually happening. But my take on Zilich, though, this is a step up, right? This is a step up from the Xfinity. There's no doubt that he has speed. I just thought, as of yesterday, weren't his odds like as low as like 5 to 1 or something like that until qualifying, right? Then it kind of pushed him down to 12 to 1 because I think they were banging on him and SVG like being the two who would like duke it out in qualifying. I just think there's going to be a little bit of a learning curve. I know the learning curve wasn't really there with a one Shane Van Gisbergen in Chicago. I understand that he did win in his first race and stuff. But there's just so much that can happen. Like Zilich, it felt like COTA, you had the penalty yesterday, right? You had the penalty last year, too. I think he had a penalty in 2024 in his first Xfinity race here at COTA. Like, it's just a young driver. He's a rookie. And I'm not sure if you want to trust the speed, I'm not going to fault you at all. But I'm not going to play him. And I do think he gets up to 20% ownership. He'll be over-owned, in my opinion. I think Dinger and, hell, you can probably make the case Chastain comes in lower on than Zilich because of the buzz that Zilich is able to create. He's actually off the radar for me. I liked what you said about Allmendinger too. It's like, does he really have the car that will be able to kind of get there in the top 5? We've added so much road course talent. I know that a few years ago, what was it? Chastain, Bowman, and him were going right into the final turn there for the win, basically. And I don't know. Starting 12th, these two guys are just kind of like the odd men out for me. Zilich more so than Dinger. You're going to have a lot of Bell. I think he's just a very safe play. But cream of the crop for me, Shane Van Gisbergen. He's the one guy I'm just going to be jamming in. He had a little bit of bad luck last year, stats. I mean, that's one thing to kind of note. And even in the Chicago race where he was, defending his win, he didn't have the best of luck in the Cup Series last year. I do think it helps being full-time, getting like a full offseason, knowing that you're going to be in this car. He raced it in Daytona. He raced it in Atlanta. I just think that's going to do a lot for him. He was really fast in practice as well. I'm just going to go ahead and jump the line. Oh, no, I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm taking the favorite, right? I'm taking Shane Van Gisbergen to win the race overall. He is my favorite stud here tonight or today. I guess it's a 4 o'clock race. The sun will almost be down by the midway point, so I will say tonight. But, yeah, that's about it for me. Stats, let's move on to the mid-tier here. We got a doozy of options here. I want you to start with just 2 guys, though, right? Or 3 guys. We'll go ahead and group Bowman in there, too. Can you play all 3 in single entries, right? Bowman, Buescher, and Cindric, or do you think it's wise to kind of split them up a little bit? And in cash, are they just locks? In my opinion, I think those 3 guys you have to jam in cash, right?
It's a lock in cash. I mean, you just got to play it. I mean, it seems like the cash lineups are just kind of building themselves. So I don't play much in the way of cash, but yeah, it looks pretty obvious to me. Now, GPP, they're all strong plays. I don't know. I mean, I just think there's so many pretty good plays out there that it's going to spread ownership out a bit. These are going to be 3 of the higher owned guys. Let me see where I've got them. Bowman. I mean, these are, I'm looking along with Bell, right? You're looking at, these are the guys who are going to be in the 30 to 40% rate. Do you think anyone gets like significantly over 40%? I just don't think there's enough of. I just think there's too many of these guys.
If it was an Xfinity slate, I would say 100% because Xfinity feels like it's a sharper field than Cup right now. Stats. It just feels like every Xfinity and trucks race, they're all 60%. But in this case, like Cindric, it feels like in Cup race, the highest that I kind of see a guy get is like 44%. Like I wouldn't project anyone ever for more than 44% unless it's an absolute like just lock jam, like Kyle Larson starting last.
Yeah, that happens on occasion, and then you just have to play it.
Like Cindric's kind of close to that, but I don't like 44% has always been my ceiling in Cup for the last, like I would say last year, and like I don't see them getting above that, right? I think like if it happens, it'd be 46 or 47, but I don't think he comes in overowned. Like to me, I think he's got a better than 50% chance of hitting the winner, maybe even 60%. Just keep that car on track. We know Cindric's talent. I think Buescher, you can maybe make the case for more because 24th, like, look, 18th might not be good enough, but Cindric, man, we know he's got the talent to drive it up at least, 15, 20 spots.
I mean, there's no doubt. And then you got Bowman. I mean, look how good Bowman's done here. I mean, he's been no worse than fourth in the next gen cars. So, GPP, you've got to kind of, I don't know if you could play. I mean, obviously you can play all three. Here's the thing. If you're going to play all three of these guys, then you're going, I think you have to go pretty different with the rest. So if you're going to do that, then you're probably not going to play Reddick and you're probably not going to play SVG. And then you're looking at someone else to be your dom. So I think that's where you'd have to differentiate yourself and say, hey, I'm going to go, with a Larson or maybe play Larson, Elliott, something unusual to differentiate yourself from the field. Because if you're going to go Bowman, Buescher, Cindric, Bell, man, it's going to be, you're going to probably, if you do hit it, you're going to be chopping it about 172 ways. So, which, wouldn't be the worst thing either, but we're trying to at least ship these things and or at least chop it minimally. So yeah. And look, I'm going to put you on the spot because I can't figure it out. Now, the obvious choice is you've got Cindric starting 36. So it's just like, okay, he's starting the furthest back. So it makes the most sense. You got to throw one of these guys out. Like, I mean, who are you throwing out? You got Bowman with the history he's had here. Cindric starts 36th.
So you talk about the changes, right? Like if you really wanted to kind of break it down, right? Bowman's my guy. I'm picking to kind of get different on stats because in my single entry right now, I'm in a 2v2. Bowman's involved in that 2v2, but you know who else is involved in that 2v2? A guy like Briscoe starting 18th, right? And in the 19, it's not a bad road course driver at all. And at that point, it's just head-to-head, Bowman versus Briscoe. I know it's 900 cheaper. Also gets me a little bit more of my build and stuff. And this is my single entry stuff. And like, I don't want to play all three chalk guys. And look, the track changes are here, right? It's not the same exact track. It's not the same exact tire. I know it's the same car, right? But at the end of the day, though, it's like Bowman, from what I've seen, right? From what we've seen, he's good on road course and stuff. I don't want to rely on history, right? I do think I'll prefer Buescher and Cindric over him. I do want to get a little bit different off of Bowman because we know at the end of the day, like, I think he feels like he has to kind of make his due on these road courses and stuff. Might get a little more aggressive or whatever, but like, something in my gut is telling me not to click Bowman's name today. I don't know what it is. The odds are great at 14-1. He'll be a little bit overowned to me, but I'm like, look, he's the worst Hendrick driver. He is. I mean, at the end of the day, he might not have a ride next year. He might lose it to Connor Zilish. I mean, that's what I a little bit read on X yesterday on Twitter. I'm sitting there, I just don't know. And I get this uneasy feeling about Bowman. I think there's a lot of options where you can go a little bit below. Like, you have guys like Briscoe who caught my eye. I already mentioned him, like starting 18th in the 19, in the Truex ride, right? The Truex ride that we know they're a very good team. They were able to do really well in road courses in the past. And Briscoe himself also having a talent. Like, to me, I don't get the difference between 14-1 and 55-1. I can't imagine doing all these bets and stuff. Is the 14-1 in your opinion justified for Alex Bowman? Because he's much better odds than Buescher starting right next to him. We've seen Buescher have incredible success on road courses as well.
Yeah, it's definitely overdone. It's the track history or his history here at the track. But I think that differential, I agree with you. I mean, it's a big difference in the price. And I don't think the probability that the probability difference in the two of them winning this race is as different. That delta is nearly as great as what the betting markets are showing. So I agree with you. I don't see the value in the betting market on Bowman this week. I think he's a little overpriced, and that's certainly based on his his history at this track. So yeah, it's going to be tough to get. It's going to be tough to figure out which one of these. You can almost, this is not some genius insight, but it's like a pretty good chance at least one of these guys doesn't make the winner. So your guess is as good as mine which one that's going to be. So you're going to take who I think is going to be is Cindric. Who's the highest owned out of these guys? Is it Bowman? I was kind of thinking it was going to be Bowman.
I had Cindric.
Cindric's going to be because of the 36. Yeah, I mean, he's got 36. That better place differential.
You see the 36. It's like seeing
I know. It stares at you.
It really does. You make eye contact with it, you can't shake it.
I know. It's hard to get it's hard to get off it.
No, it could be Joey Gase next to that name at 36.
Well,
damn.
Well, not quite, because we have a few guys down in that range that we're not going to get too excited about.
We do have some guys starting the year down at 37. You're right.
But then the guy right underneath there, you got Blaney.
Yeah.
Seems like no one's really talking about Blaney. Pretty cheap.
Is it reputation for him? Because I look at Blaney, right? I'm like, ew, like not good at road courses.
No, I mean, he's mediocre at best.
He's mediocre, right? But like, he's not that bad. Like when you look at the results and stuff like that, he does have some like top 15s in there, which 15th, in my opinion, has a very good shot at being good enough. I mean, I think you would need top. I think
you need more than that.
I think 12th or 10th would be the 10th would be GPP winning upside. I think 15th would be very safe and potentially single entry. But like you put it in comparison, just odds wise, right? I think Buescher's odds are a little bit skewed. 45-1, I think is decent value, right? But 50-1 for Blaney, I mean, it's the same thing, right? Like at the end of the day, Buescher and Blaney are right next to each other, but one's going to be way higher owned than the other.
I mean, in the 3 next gen races here, he's finished 6th and 12th. So like the 6th will certainly get you there. The 12th maybe. So in 2 out of 3 of those races, so it's not it's not like he hasn't shown he could do it. Easily could get you into the top 10 and get you in the winner. So I think Blaney's a guy who's kind of overlooked. And if you want to pivot, someone who might be, I don't know where Sabre has him, but I'm guessing maybe in the low 20% kind of. Let's look. I got it up here. They got him in, so they got him at like 25% on Sabre
for Blaney
ownership. I think he's going to be in that like 20 to 25%.
I think it'll be lower. Well, because I think this like gluttony of mid-range options that we have, I do think Blaney is going to be like almost like an odd man out.
He is, and I think that's someone you can pivot to. Like if you're going to get off of 1 or 2 of those the Bowman, Buescher, Cindric train, I think Blaney's a pretty good play starting 25th. I mean, look, like you compared them here. I mean, Blaney to Buescher, you get one better starting position. I mean, if they're racing heads up, I mean, I mean, Buescher should have the advantage. I don't think it's that big of an advantage, and certainly not in a GPP. It's not a big enough advantage where I'd say you got to absolutely take Buescher over Blaney. So if I'm getting that ownership and that leverage on the field, I'd much rather have Blaney if I'm single entry building. And it's between the two. I'm taking Blaney.
Yeah, not bad at all. I mean, that is definitely something to consider just ownership wise, because you can quickly approach 200% in your lineup, right? Like if you just did cumulative ownership, I mean, that's a number. I do want your take here, right? If you really want to get in the nuance, like little DFS talk and stuff, cumulative ownership today, like it's possible to get into 200% easily. Is there a certain number that you ever focus on for cumulative, or do you not really care about it?
I don't look at it necessarily like that. And because I'm building 150, like maybe if I was building, 3 lineups or something like that, I think there's some merit in looking at potential ownership and not getting yourself just, all the chalk plays, throwing 6 chalk plays out there, probably not beneficial in a GPP. But yeah, I don't do any sort of setting like that. I don't get rid of certain lineups that don't fit whatever the criteria is for ownership. I kind of let the chips fall where they may. And, on occasion we're going to hit with with a very chalky lineup, and we'll
like
chop
last week in Atlanta.
Was that
last week Atlanta? That was mega chalk. I mean, it was one of the most chalky finishes that you could ever imagine.
Exactly. Yeah, no, it's going to happen in NASCAR. You're going to get that. But when you play 150, the advantage, what you're trying to do with the 150 is get yourself enough combinations where you get some of these lower owned guys mixed in there that hopefully one of those lineups pops, because almost always there's going to be someone that we're not high on, no one else is high on. And whether it's luck or whatever, it'll more likely be a little bit of luck this week. Like if someone, and I think it'll be place differential. I actually wanted to talk about this a little bit. And I mentioned earlier, like you're going to want to differentiate yourself if you're going to take those 3 chalk guys here that we just talked about. And maybe you want to do it up at the top. If you're going to do it up at the top, it's got to be with someone with the skill to be able to do it. Now, I don't foresee it, which is why I like Reddick. I like SVG as well. And I think you can take both of those guys, as you said, in your lineup. I think where you'll get the better chance of you getting lucky is in place differential than in laps led because of the skill involved. It's not like you can just jump out to the lead and just sit there at some of these tracks, some of these short tracks where you just accumulate a bunch of laps led. The guy who's going to the guy or two who are going to get the all the Dom points are probably going to be some of the better road course racers. So you're not going to luck into Dom. You're probably, if someone's going to be go low own and make it into the winner, it's just going to be, they get lucky with pit strategy or, whatever it is, things fall right. And you get a guy that we're really not looking at all that hard to, get a top 10 finish. It's NASCAR. And then the other thing is the fact that they change they change you're changing the tires, you change the distance on the track. It's fun. It's fun for us, but it makes it a lot more difficult to go ahead and look at history. And also this track does not correlate, even though it's a road course. It's not a super high correlation to the other road courses. There's a it's the highest correlation, obviously higher than, certainly a Daytona. So you do want to look at the other road courses, but the correlation is not as great as it is on some other tracks. So it's the potential, I think, is there for us to be surprised. I think that's a long way of saying it, where we can get a low own, maybe 2 low own drivers in here. But again, I think it's going to be more place differential than we're going to see Dom points. So that's where I would look mostly for my low own guys.
Yeah, I like that a lot, Stats. I mean, it's very good to kind of differentiate between, like, this being a road course, the fastest laps really kind of, for Xfinity especially, belong to, like, 3 guys, right? Like, 3 guys are able to run the fastest lap. Here, like, in the Cup Series, like, you can maybe make the case for 6 or 7, but it's not like you're going to get fastest laps from, like, I guess I didn't want to be cruel to, like, Daniel Suarez starting 5th or whatever.
Suarez was staring at me, too, when you said that. I'm like, I almost threw it out. I'm like, he's not going to lead any laps.
Yeah, it's like, that's the thing. He's not – what are the chances he leads laps, right? Not great, but what are the chances he also gets fast lap? Not great. And this is where it just kind of becomes like an X off, right? If Daniel Suarez leads 20 laps and, like, ends up winning a stage or whatever and ends up beating me if I finish in 3rd, so be it.
Exactly.
And like you said, the place differential, like, look, it's going to be much easier for, potentially, guys down here like Justin Haley all of a sudden gets like 14th at like 10%. You're just like, oh man, that was good enough, right? It gave me enough value at 6,300. I do agree with you completely there. Stats, anyone else that you want to talk about in this mid-range? I know that we kind of cut off after Blaney. We still have like another half or whatever, but really, like, I did want your take on a guy like Hamlin, right? Because Hamlin, not great at road courses, right? Notably not great at road courses. However, you do have this like small change, right, with the tire. And there is like a lot of tire wear talk a little bit. I'm more reading on Twitter right now while you were talking and stuff like that. He's a good tire wear guy. Like, is there a chance?
Yeah.
Is there a chance that he keeps, takes care of the car and all of a sudden he's sitting there at the end? And we know, I shouldn't say he's not a great road course guy because, like, he's got potential. I mean, he's one of the best racers in the series or whatever, but I don't associate with him just going out and dominating road courses, but to the same level as guys like, Van Gisbergen, Buescher, or Reddick, or Byron even and stuff. But at the same time, like, I don't know. I maybe he's got a little bit of upside here that I'm not seeing. And then all these other guys here at the bottom of the range too, like Logano, not great, right? Briscoe is someone that I kind of want you to talk about a little bit selfishly because I do want to hear your take on Briscoe. And then McDowell, who has been pretty good in the past on these tracks as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, Denny Hamlin, I think you were being nice. He's not good on these tracks. And like these old guys, except for the ones, like a Dinger or something like that, like these older Cup drivers, a lot of them are just not that good on these road courses. But you make an interesting point. He's probably the best saver of tires in the field, maybe in the business. So give him a plus there, but I don't think it's enough. Starting 11th, I just can't get excited about Denny Hamlin. Yeah. I think it will be if he gets there, it's going to be because he just masterfully handles the whatever situation arises here with the tires, and he handles it better than everyone else. It's not going to be on skill, on getting around this course quicker than everybody else, as far as the lines that he takes and all that. I mean, it's just not. There's probably 15 guys in this race who are going to be better than him in that. So I just don't think I don't think the tire issue is going to be enough to push him over the top. So I don't like Hamlin. Logano, I like Logano better, and certainly his ownership will reflect that. He's going to be a lot higher owned than Denny Hamlin. I don't think Hamlin gets much ownership here at all. But Logano starting 23rd. I mean, not the greatest history. I mean, look at his next gen COTA finishes have not been good. 31st, 28th, and then last year at 11th. So people will look at that and maybe downgrade Logano a bit. But again, it's that starting position. So we got to look at these guys, quality drivers who are starting, in the 20s, certainly in the 30s, and maybe give him a shot. Is he one of my favorite plays? Not really, but I'm not going to be shocked here with a Logano. Where's Logano on the odds here?
55 or 45 to 1. So it's better than Briscoe. It's better than McDowell. I mean,
it's 45. Well, it's interesting. He's 45 to 1 at DraftKings, but like some of the other books have him a lot higher.
Yeah, this is interesting. Yeah,
so BetMGM's got him all the way up at plus 8K.
That to me that makes more sense. I do kind of have it like he's got the same odds as Buescher, man. He's got similar odds to just like throwing some other guys like Ty Gibbs and stuff. I don't know. Like on a 45 to 1, yeah, I do agree with maybe 80 to 1 would probably be a little bit better.
Yeah, but I mean, for the price and where he starts, I don't think it's a terrible option to kind of throw him in there.
Yes.
At 23rd, can he sneak into I think he could sneak into the top 10, but certainly you're not going to be shocked with a top 15 performance. I don't know if that's enough. Starting 23rd, probably not going to get you any Dom points there, but not going to be shocked if he gets in the top 10 and maybe catches us a piece here. Can we get there with like a 9th? That's 14-point differential. Ninth place
would be good enough. I think
that would be good. Yeah. So I think I think Logano again. Hamlin, I'm kind of throwing out. Logano. I never pronounce it right. Logano. And I'm Italian too, and I can never pronounce the name right. But Logano, like a little bit more, and then kind of like right in between is going to be, Chase Briscoe. Like he's supposed to be a good road course racer, but hasn't really shown it yet. Let me look at his history here. I'm just going off like what I can remember. So, yeah, I mean, just at COTA in the next gen cars, he's averaged 19th place finish.
Yeah.
Not good. Now, a lot of that is based on the fact that he finished 30th back in 22. He's had a 15th and a 13th place finish, but I don't think that's going to get it done here with an 18th starting spot.
Yeah, like that, I think like the thing for me too is like different equipment, right? It's not a Haas, right? It's not the Stewart Haas Racing or whatever. Right. That's not like it wasn't like a terrible car or anything like that. He's coming into a new zone, and to me, it's like you're right. I do really want him to be the guy that I pick, right? I do want to get different with Chase Briscoe and into this car where, like, if it was Truex starting, 18th at 7,400, I'd be ready. And I think Briscoe has just as much talent at the latter stages of the Truex's career, and then what Briscoe is now and stuff. Like, I think he has the ability to drive it into the top 10 today. I would think I would want him to just outperform. This is a single entry mindset, right? Like in MME and stuff like that, you have to make sure that you're covering your grounds and stuff. But like for me, when I'm building out these like 1v1s, 2v2s in my heads and stuff, like I need Briscoe to outperform Bowman. Whoever I'm fading from this three, basically whatever pivot I need him to outscore the one I'm fading, right? Because I'm going to have two of these guys. I know that. I know I'm going to have two of Bowman, Buescher, Cindric. And whoever I fade, I hope they get beat by whatever my pivot is. And that pivot for me right now is Briscoe. Hey, hell, you could make the case for Blaney, Logano. I don't know if I'd make the case for McDowell. New team. I don't love it.
It just doesn't have the equipment. Good. Yeah. Another guy who's good on the good road course driver, great road course driver. But yeah, I don't think he's got the good. He's good road course driver, but I don't think he's got the equipment. But I like what you're saying here. I'm actually I can get behind Briscoe as that pivot option. Yeah. Certainly going to be low owned, and the pedigree is there. So while he hasn't shown the history, He does have the ability. We've heard about his road course ability. So
we've heard about it, right?
yeah, we've heard about it. We just have to see it. So, I mean, look, you're playing these games. It's not easy to win these damn things. And like I said, there are going to be surprises. So that would not be a crazy surprise to have a guy who's got a pedigree to do this, who just hasn't been able to get around the track really clean and keep the tires on the thing a lot of times. So maybe we get that performance this week at a super low ownership. Not a bad guy to throw in there with some of these chalky plays that we're going to have.
Yeah, just like looking at it off the top of the head too. I'm going to not top of the head. I'm going to Wikipedia, so I'm just looking at some recent finishes and stuff. He did have a 6th here in 2021 at COTA, right?
Yeah, that was the old. Yeah, with the old cars,
jet, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I guess that was 2001. But they also had a 6 at Watkins Glen. He also had a 6 at the Indianapolis road course. So his upside is 6th, if I can make that out. So
yeah. And he's also had a 34th at Sonoma and a 37th at
I cherry picked his 3 best results.
Yeah, so we could cherry pick some. So yeah, I mean it's it's easier said than done, but I do think he does have the ability to get up there. So not bad. I mean, if you have a guy who's got the ability at least and is not going to be owned, that's not I don't think that's a bad option. What do you think? I mean, he's going to be like the teens, something like that.
Ownership? Yeah, I think he comes in at like 15%, if not lower. And that's the part where, like Jake, like this is the thing too. I think a lot of people are going to play Bowman. I think Bowman comes in a little bit higher than Buescher the more I look at the slate and stuff. And the Fords probably not as fast as the Chevys. I just feel like Bowman's going to hit a tire barrier in single entry lineups. But if I am at me, I'm going to have plenty.
I mean, in the betting markets, the Fords, that's an understatement. Like the Fords are just plus like 800 to win the race, and the Chevys are minus 150, minus 200, something like that.
You get all that road course talent on the Chevys too.
It is. So yeah, it'll be pretty surprising if we get a Ford up in the winter, even on the podium maybe.
Yep. Hocevar ruffled some feathers last week, and also left his vehicle despite it being perfectly fine to continue yesterday.
Yeah, it's like I guess he just didn't give a shit and was like.
Did you hear what the excuse was? He didn't have radio.
No, I didn't hear it.
He didn't have radio, right? Communication with the team before the race. Had no way of communicating with them, and then just jumped out the car after the wreck.
It was ridiculous.
The entire team was confused. I was already tilted that the wreck happened, but then I got more tilted as like the tweets started to flood in. It's like, yeah, the crew chief said like the damage didn't look that bad. He was wondering why he got out of the car. I'm just sitting there like, you can't do that to me, man.
No.
All right, stats. Let's get to our value section. So we spent 48 minutes talking about the studs and mid-tier. I guarantee you we're not going to spend more than 12 minutes on the values here, right? Unless you want to spend 10 minutes talking about Cody Ware, we can. I mean, I'm all ears. But the one note that I want to make before I'll lead you in this way, but Riley Herbst had a time deleted that would have put him good enough for 3rd in qualifying because he is also a 2311 driver, right? Reddick and Bubba Wallace were incredibly fast in qualifying. Herbst was incredibly fast in qualifying. Were they incredibly fast in practice? Not really, like you said, right? So that's the small recap. That being said, Herbst is now starting 31st. He is my favorite value at 5,400. He'll probably be one of the best value options on the slate. To me, it gets me anything that I want. I can also go a little bit higher to guys like Justin Haley, Josh Berry, John H. Nemechek. I think that's kind of it. Like, look, I can make the case for Gragson a little bit, right? I don't mind Gragson. I don't hate Custer. But really, like, I don't think I'm clicking Kez. I just don't think I'm doing it. You talk about a guy who's old, not going to adapt to new courses and stuff like that. Not that this is entirely new. It's always been on the NASCAR calendar in recent years and stuff. But it's like, I don't know. You can't teach an old dog new tricks. I'm not playing the game with Keselowski here. But all those other guys that I mentioned, specifically Herbst being my number one guy, I do feel like there is some potential to find maybe one driver. I don't think I would double stack value drivers though today.
I don't think you need to. And we typically don't see. I mean, you're being nice. You're calling them, value drivers, basically the scrubs. And this is not a place where we're going to get a lot of scrubs up into the winter. This is going to be very mid, which is why the mid tier is getting so much ownership. So we should see a lot of 7-8K drivers basically hit here. The only way you're going to get maybe some of these lower price guys is if we get 3. Maybe if Reddick, SVG, and Byron all hit the hit the winner. Maybe we'll have to get 2 of these cheaper guys. Maybe that's the only way we get it. But yeah, I don't love much down here. Now the guy, we talked about 2311. You talk about Herbst. He was right there to maybe get a better qualifying position. And where's he starting here this week? He is. I'm missing it. I lost it in front of me. What's his starting spot, Herbst, this week?
31st.
Is 31. Okay. Right? Did I get that right? Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
Herbst starts 31st. You got a lot of upset. He's not a great road course driver, but the equipment should be pretty good. All these guys, by the way, none of these guys are going to be owned all that much. So I don't think Herbst gets all that much ownership. Not a bad option if you're going to get if you're going to take some of the more expensive guys. I'm going to stay away because I think he looks like the obvious choice of the cheap guys. So I'm going to kind of stay away from him just because he's not really considered to be all that great on these road courses, and I'm going to be fairly light on these sub 6K guys. Anyway, I think the guys where we're going to get the most ownership, you're looking at Berry, that should get double-digit ownership. Maybe Cole Custer. You look at we didn't even talk about Bubba. And let's talk about Bubba because like a couple of guys who have some name. Bubba's starting second. We talked about 2311. Those cars. He's got of all the guys sub 7K. He's had the best finishes here, average 15th. That's not going to get it done here today. So starting second, he's going to have to get out to the front lead. He's just not as good as Reddick. Does he beat his teammate out there and lead a bunch of laps and hold off SVG? I just can't see it. I mean, I don't see where Bubba gets in there. Did someone I feel like someone mentioned that Bubba might be the play here. I don't know. I just can't. I can't get behind Bubba. It's probably the best of, as far as if we're just taking the pure chances to win the race. But I just can't see him getting into the money here. You've got Keselowski down here in the 12K plus 13. I'm saying plus 12,000 as far as the betting markets, plus 13,000, all the way up to plus 2,500. So one of the big long shots in this race. Where is Bubba? So Bubba's actually not that bad at plus 2,000 over on DraftKings, plus 2,700. Just moved to plus 3,100 on FanDuel. So yeah, I mean Bubba has a much better chance to win this race, but he's going to basically have to win this race in order to get us there. Gilliland starting 10th. I mean, I just can't do it. And I think you just have to pick your spots with these other guys. If you're playing 150, I don't think you could totally throw out these guys, but you want to be limited on how much we're going to take of Custer and Smith. And, Haley will have a little bit of ownership. Berry, as we said, Nemechek, not so much. I think you're just going to be mixing these guys in. Graxon, I think you can go ahead and just fade Graxon. And, I mean, we're just looking to get lucky. Stenhouse, I think, is another guy that you could just kind of toss out. I wouldn't play any Stenhouse. But I think other than that, the guys starting beyond Stenhouse, I think, are all just in the mix to kind of throw in your 150. If you want to keep Ware and Ty Dillon and Eric Jones out, I'm fine with that too. But if you want to just mix them, I'll keep them in the mix. I'll have 2 in my 150 or something like that. Single entry builds. I'm not touching these guys.
It kind of goes case in point to what you were saying too about needing to lead the race, but there's also a very, very high likelihood that there's a gentleman's agreement between him and Reddick, right? Teammate, it's a teammate. We got to protect the inside. Don't let anyone dive bomb you. And I think Bubba and Reddick will definitely make sure to kind of keep tight on that turn one. You might, if someone's able to get around them, go ahead. Fair play to them. I know that up the hill you can get some very chaotic situations, especially on the first lap. Right off the start finish, where you're just kind of cruising into the top of the hill there. I do think that he's going to kind of protect his teammate, because I think they do know, 2311 does know that Reddick gives him the best chance to win. Bubba, he's been very solid. He's had a couple decent finishes here, but you also have this last 4 here: 15th, 37th, 38th, 39th. That is pretty brutal. I know some of that is bad luck and stuff. At the same time, it is daunting to kind of see that. And at second place, I don't want to sacrifice any negative PD, because even a great day for Bubba Wallace, which could be 5th, will probably not be optimal. I mean, that's just the reality of it. If Bubba Wallace gets 5th place, he is not cracking the 40-point threshold without any Dom points, which it's kind of possible, but at the same time, that still might not even be good enough to be in the winner. I know at 6,800, 40 points, you would take it all day, and that's not one of those high upside outcomes. That's one of those unlikely outcomes, I would say, for Bubba Wallace even. So yeah, I'm with you. I'm sticking with Herbst here, right? I know that his ownership will probably be a little bit higher than most. And what you were saying earlier too, talking about place differential. I mean, this not to segue too much because I know we got 3 minutes until noon, but it's like, you'd rather get different down here than different at the top with those studs who, we know SVG, we know Reddick, those guys are going to be involved in the mix. Hell, you can make the case for Larson and them, but it's like, what's the conviction on Herbst being like the top scorer is way less than a guy like Reddick or SVG winning and leading the race and getting those Dom points and stuff. So yeah, I'm with you. If you do want to get different, especially in large field tournaments, don't be afraid to take a shot at any of these guys. I know that you threw away some guys like Stenhouse. Yeah, I'm not interested in him either and stuff. I think the one guy who's kind of starting in this like weird spot, Gragson starting 17th. Like if he were to hold position, I don't know, right? Like I'm trying to think of a case for his stats. It would have to take a lineup that uses almost all the salary. And it would have to have some very optimal guys at the top. I think that's where your double Dom would kind of come in, to where it's like, look, I needed Gragson, who got 15th, right? And I'm just making the kind of playing a little bit devil's advocate here, because I don't think Gragson's a great click at starting 17th. But it's like, what situation leads to one of these guys being optimal? It's SVG and Reddick, for example, lead 30 laps apiece. They got Dom points. They somehow had 55 plus. You needed both of them, and the only way to get both of them is to play a guy sub 6K. And can Gragson be the highest scorer in the sub 6K region? Yeah. I think Nemechek would also be a very good candidate at 33rd. I think Josh Berry at 6,100 is not the worst. Like, you're going to have options. It doesn't just have to be Herbst, even though he is my favorite. You definitely do want to pivot around a little bit down here. All right, stats. I made my pick earlier in the show. I am going to be cheering Ford Trackhouse Racing. I got that red Chevy out in the garage right now. I might take it on a joyride. My catalytic converter has been shot for a couple years now, but hey, still runs. I don't really recommend a Chevy, but hey, I'll be cheering on the Chevys today.
I don't think have I ever had a Chevy? I've never owned a Chevy. Yeah.
Lucky you.
Yeah.
I'll tell you this, man. That Chevy's caused more problems than I would. It still runs. It still runs. 10 years later, it still runs. But stats. Who is your pick for the COTA, the Echo Park race of the day?
Man, I'm having a tough time, but I hate to go chalky here, and I threw him in the core. I'm gonna stick with it. I think Reddick. I think 2311 looks really good, and Reddick on these courses, one of the best. I think he takes it from the pole. So I'm going to stick with Reddick. I'll stick with the chalk. I gave you guys a good price with Daytona. I got to give you something a little chalky this week, unfortunately.
We'll make it up to the people now. All right. We're going to use safer ownership. I know I don't have that up or anything like that, but we'll do a sub 20% driver that we each like, right? I think you can probably guess mine at this point, but like we'll do a sub 20% driver who your driver of the day, sub 20%, to kind of give people different things. I know we both picked the two favorites of the race. We'll try and make it up with a little contrarian play here.
Yeah, let me look here.
I'll go ahead and go first while you look.
Go ahead, because I think I have a guy.
Right? I already mentioned it a lot, but Chase Briscoe in the 19, I think that he is going to outscore one of Cindric, Buescher, and Bowman. Oh, a very hot take there, right? But at the same time, I do think you need to get a little bit different off this cluster of three. My pivot off of one of these three would be Briscoe, starting 18th. The talent is there. The equipment is there. I just think this kind of blending into the fact that it would not shock me at all to see Briscoe top 10 today. And I do think, in a sense, when you have a guy starting 21st, you can almost treat it like a head-to-head, where Briscoe is going to be maybe 25% the ownership, maybe a fourth. I should not use percentages when I'm talking about ownership percentage. Maybe a fourth of the ownership of Bowman. I do think that the likelihood that he beats him is probably greater than 40, 35% of the time. I do think it's great leverage here and something that I'm willing to do. And I think you can make the same case for Logano and Blaney and stuff when you're talking about Buescher and Bowman more specifically. For Cindric, I'm going to have a lot of Cindric, but Briscoe's my guy to get different here. Stats.
I like the Briscoe call as well. I think, we discussed it in, a little bit of length there. Not a bad pivot, but I'm not going to take the same one that you took. There's another guy down there. I thought you might take Herbst, all the way down at the 5,400. We'll see. I think you can make a case there. I've told you not necessarily the guy that I'm targeting, but I think some people would say that's potential. Now I'm going to give you an unusual one because I would have taken Briscoe, I think, as well. And Reddick, according to Saber, is going to just miss out. I think he will certainly be over 20% when it's all said and done. So I can't take him. The guy, I'm going to go with an unusual guy that we didn't talk about much, and he's starting in a tough spot, 13th. I'm going to go with Ty Gibbs. Let's go back to what we did last year, which is take Ty Gibbs every week. And
take Ty Gibbs every single week until the summer. And you know what? It didn't work out that bad for the Bristol race that we had early on in the season. Then he blew a tire.
That's right. But it's a weird, he's starting in that 13th spot, not a lot of upside. I'm like, but he could run on these type of tracks, and he could get up there. I mean, he's good road course racer. Maybe he gets us into the top three and gets us into a winner. So definitely won't be high owned because of that starting position. Unlikely he's going to dom. It's going to take a strong finish. But you kind of took, I think, the best one. So I'll go out on a limb here with Gibbs.
All right. I love it. All the cores, I think, are posted as well, I believe. I know there's just a small sneak peek into the rankings here. We're very high on Cindric as a whole, and your top three is very clear here as well. So lots of fun to be had on this slate. I know that Bryce just put up the cash core here as well. So if you were looking for cash content, it is on the site as well. And Discord is going to be popping up to lock. I think we have almost 4 hours until lock. So this is a race a little bit later than usual. So,
I think it's a little earlier. I think the FanDuel lock's a little later than the draft. I think 3:30 on DraftKings, 3:47 on
3:47 now on DK. So they
is
must
now.
have
Okay.
adjusted. You were right. 3:30 on FanDuel, 3:47.
Oh, I got it the other way. Okay. Yeah. I knew FanDuel was usually off.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I was like, it'd be weird for DK.
It's usually the other way. Yeah, right. I had it wrong. But actually, someone's asking just quick on lineup construction. We did talk about this in the beginning. I think 2 is your max.
Yeah.
And I do think you want 1 for sure.
Yes.
So I think you want 1 or 2. And the weight with the tire situation, I think I'm leaning more 2 than I may have in the past. But yeah, so I would say 1 or 2. 3 is going to be a stretch. I don't know if we can get 3 DOMs in there.
Yep, I like it.
If you're looking at the history real quick, I'm sorry, I don't want to drag the show out, but I was looking at and it's not a ton of history, but let's see if I have it up in front of me quick. If you look at the who's finished in the top 6, like starting position in the top 6 historically, I think almost every year we've had two drivers that have started in the top 10 have made it, and no more. So we've never had 3, and I think we've always had 2. So it's not a ton of history. Doesn't mean it's going to happen this year, but certainly 2 in the top 10 starters has hit just about every year.
Yeah, I think I would max it out at 2. I think that's a smart move, and especially when you have to assume for tournaments, right, that those 2 would be dominating at least a little bit, right? Or at least getting some fast laps, at least getting a little bit of laps led. 3, you're stretching your luck. So, all right, for Stats and we appreciate y'all for watching. We'll see what the schedule entails. It could be premium next week. We'll keep an eye on the Twitter if you do want to get involved, though. RPS 15% off your first purchase here at Run Pure Sports. I have a feeling that I think March Madness week will be premium. Maybe next week we go free, right? I think we might have March Madness week where mostly everything is premium. I know that Boynton is going to do all the content for those March Madness games, and the Captain will have projections for that March Madness as well. For the conference tournaments, for the NCAA tournament, they've had them all season long, so nothing's going to change in that regard. Again, RPS 15% off your first purchase. Thank you all for joining us for Stats and Good luck today.